was doing nothing but telling the truth. I heard her say it, and I repeated it. I'm grown, and I do what I want. You know who I am. I'm Jackie Christie. That ain't gonna change.
What if the life you built, the public image, the family legacy, the love you claimed to protect, was built on a lie so deep it shattered everything? What if one test, a simple DNA result, pulled the rug out from under your world in a single moment? Tonight, we dive into a storm of betrayal, secrets, and heartbreak. This is the story of Doug Christie, a man whose silence cracked under the weight of the truth, a truth that would not stay hidden. The result, Chris Webber revealed as the biological father. Brace yourself. This is a story of trust broken, reputation shattered, and a family's foundation ripped apart. Doug Christie was once the poster child of loyalty, to marriage, to fatherhood, to being the rock behind a family wrapped in the glow of fame. For years, he stood tall. He showed the world a picture-perfect marriage with Jackie Christie. He played the devoted husband, the provider, the public figure who spoke boldly about trust and commitment. He built, through those years, not just a name, but a legacy. One that hundreds of thousands watched, admired, and invested in. But behind the scenes, doubt had begun to whisper. It started small, glances in Jackie's eyes that didn't add up.
One of these lunatic, jughead, simple bitches had the audacity to say what?
That you were caught prostituting some back in 1987 or something back in the day.
Ask me, and I'll tell you no. I done a lot, okay? But if prostitution ain't.
Odd phone calls, deleted texts, gaps in her explanations. He brushed them off, as many of us would, telling himself she loved him, that their bond was stronger than rumors. He believed the story he wanted to believe. He told himself that the front they showed the world contained the whole truth. Only, it did and single quotes Jackie, too, carried her burden. She had built relationships in the public eye, gained fans for her strength, her outspokenness, the brand of reality TV queen. To admit that the foundation might be cracked, to risk that image, it was a risk she couldn't afford. So the whispers stayed whispers. The questions stayed buried until that DNA test. For years, Doug ignored it or sidestepped it. He paid tuition, he signed documents, he embraced his role as father, believing fully he loved their daughter, Chantal, fiercely, unconditionally, as any father would. But inside, a storm was building, unspoken. He didn't act rashly, he waited. He collected himself.
But you better keep your ass in that seat, tramp. That's what you better do. You right, Dumbo ears. Yeah, I got a lot of husbands about these ears. Get a husband. That 48-year-old been working. You right. Retire.
Because if the truth ever came out, it would demolish everything they had. Then came the moment he finally could no longer sit in uncertainty. The quiet voice inside him demanded more than silence. He ordered a DNA test in secret. Not to start a war, he said later. He just needed the truth. And when the results came back, 0% match, his world exploded. He wasn't Chantal's biological father. That sheet of paper did more than raise doubt. It obliterated years of assumed identity. But that was only the beginning, because Doug didn't stop there. He commissioned a second DNA test, not just for himself, but involving Chris Webber, a name whispered in back rooms, connected by rumors, by timelines, by secrets. That second report came back with a staggering 99.998% match. Chris Webber, not Doug Christie, was Chantal's biological father.
Disgusting. It's disgusting. It makes me sick.
She said a lot of things that actually hurt my feelings as a mom.
That revelation hit like a bomb. In an instant, Doug's life, his marriage, his public persona, all of it became a battlefield. He filed a lawsuit. He accused Jackie of paternity fraud, emotional manipulation, identity theft. He laid out numbers, thousands in private school, medical bills, therapy costs, emotional damage. He argued that Jackie had built her brand around a lie, that the perfect family she presented to the world had, in fact, been a facade. Jackie's defense cracked under pressure. Documents once confident and clean began to unravel. Under oath, she admitted she had had doubts. She confessed she had listed Doug on the birth certificate, even though she had known all along the possibility that Chantal might not be his. But admitting that was only the start. There was a more explosive charge, bribery. She allegedly tried to send Chantal money, $15,000, with a note, "Please don't tell." That very envelope, that very bribe, became evidence in court. And then there was Chris, quiet until now. He was thrust into the center. In deposition, he confessed that he had suspected the truth from the start. He said he never sought a DNA test because he didn't want to disrupt what was already built. He claimed he stepped aside, letting the lie persist. But his words came too late to stop the avalanche. With every testimony, every leaked text, every financial record, every timeline mismatched, the case grew messier, deeper, more damning. Doug's calm strategy replaced months of silence. The media circled. His legal team pressed. Jackie's sponsors pulled back. Her brand began to crumble. Her TV appearances paused. Contracts quietly severed. The image that had been her foundation was now a prison of guilt and exposure. Chantal, caught in the crossfire, was more than a piece of evidence. Suddenly, she was a girl betrayed by two of the closest figures in her life. She had spoken before of loving both of them, needing both of them. But now, as she heard the truth, she felt something shift inside her. The name she had always worn, Christie, now bore a river of lies beneath it. Her identity had been tangled in deceit, and she knew she had to break free. Doug's filing wasn't only about dollars or lip service. His claim was about something deeper, identity. He accused not only financial manipulation, but civil identity theft, that Jackie had deceived him for years, using his name, his love, his life, in a grand deception. He demanded that Chris Webber's name be added to Chantal's birth certificate. He demanded accountability, not just in court, but in public conscience. He made this more than a scandal. He made it a reckoning. When court records were exposed showing attempts to bribe Chantal, the note, the envelope, Jackie's admission, it all became a narrative of desperation, the manuscript of a life unraveling. In one hearing, Doug, calm and composed, gazed across the table at Jackie and delivered a simple, piercing line. "I was shielding a lie, not a woman." Those words echoed. They weren't loud, but they cut sharper than any shout. He wasn't attacking her as a person. He was exposing the lie she shielded. Jackie's legal team tried to spin it. Miscommunications, emotional overwhelm, mistakes made under pressure. But the documents told a harsher story. Her depositions faltered. Her explanations unraveled. The note, referencing protecting the family, could not be dismissed. Her defense looked inconsistent. Chris, on his end, said he wasn't trying to break anything, but his silence became its own confession. The public watched. Headlines exploded. Sponsors dropped her. Her boutique partners dropped her. Her podcast, once a pillar of empowerment, suspended episodes. Reality TV networks paused reruns. Her empire, built on her image as an assertive, bold, unfiltered woman, began to wobble under the weight of the truth she had concealed. Through it all, Chantal stayed silent until she couldn't. Behind the scenes, she filed to change her name, citing emotional harm and identity reconstruction. She didn't make a spectacle. She simply stepped into a new version of herself, separate from the name that held to decades of confusion. The fallout was sharp. Doug's legal team also flagged potential criminal charges: forgery, perjury, falsifying public records. If proven, Jackie could face consequences far beyond reputation. The stakes leapt from civil damage to criminal exposure. Streaming services reportedly circled the case, eager for a televised trial. What started as a paternity suit had become a cultural moment, a story of betrayal, identity, consequences. What nobody expected was how quietly Doug handled it publicly. No grand social media tirades, no televised rants. Instead, a steady legal presence, a few statements. "This is not about revenge. This is about the truth I was never given." And the world watched. When that DNA test dropped, it didn't just shatter Doug's life, it smashed the mirror of their family identity. The man who believed for years that he was raising a daughter born of his blood had to reconcile with a truth that felt like betrayal. The internal pain of discovering that your assumed identity is false is something no lawsuit can fully heal. Within Doug, there must have been a collision, a heartbreak stronger than any breakup. To love a child who is not biologically yours is one thing, but to learn that your entire life was built on a lie, that the trust you placed in someone you loved was manipulated, that scarring runs deep. He lost more than money or reputation. He lost certainty, legacy, the very core of what he believed in. For Jackie, the emotional cost is equally immense. Her brand was everything. The woman who touted empowerment, control, being bold, now faced accusations of weakness, deception, manipulation. Her public persona and her private life collided. The pressure, the shame, the unraveling of her empire. It must feel like standing in the ruins of a world she built with no solid foundation. And for Chantal, the cost is the most personal. Raised in one name, anchored by love from two people who claimed a connection, only to learn that the narrative was fractured. She saw the life people believed, and then she saw how fragile it was. Her identity, her past, her love, all tangled in a web of secrets. To rebuild from that is a journey of quiet strength, of reclaiming self beyond the name, beyond the public story, beyond the pain. This case did more than make headlines. It opened questions about truth, about identity, about what we owe to ourselves and others in love and trust. It challenged the idea that image and narrative can hide the fractures beneath. In the end, what do we take away from this explosion of truth? That love is fragile, that betrayal can be quiet before it is loud, that identity is a sacred thing, not just a name, but a story we tell ourselves and others. Doug didn't start this war to shame. He started it to find the truth he deserved. And truth, once found, has a way of reshaping everything. You might ask, what becomes of the marriage, the brand, the empire, the daughter caught between two legacies? The answers are still unfolding, but this much is clear. Something changed irreversibly. The lie that stood so long could not survive the weight of evidence. And maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes we cling to stories we need, stories that comfort us. But when those stories are built on lies, they don't comfort, they suffocate. And eventually, DNA, documents, truth, they demand to be heard. So I'll leave you with this. Trust is not just a claim, it's a covenant of truth. When that covenant is broken, the wounds run deep. But from those wounds can rise a new foundation, if we are brave enough to face the truth and rebuild. Who will emerge from this storm changed? Who will stand, stronger or shattered? Time will tell. But one thing's for sure, this was never just a paternity case. It was a reckoning, and we will all be watching what comes next.